This is a logical continuation of the previous program. And for those who haven't seen this program, I highly recommend, please either check this link, I'll share this presentation as usually, or this is the link to YouTube, or just visit our video gallery on IM Events website. And in our video gallery, you will find this program listed for free. So I hope everyone had a chance to see this program, which was made on 28th of November last year. So in that program, I was talking about my general insights, general findings regarding mediums' brainwaves. I did my best to show as many examples as possible, and we looked into two table tipping experiences, for example, for gamma. We looked into unusual out-of-body experiences. We looked into brainwaves of natural mediums. But today, really, I would like to take you into more detail. Namely, I would like to share with you like 3 big cases or 3 big experiments. And then if we have time, I have little tasty bites that we may cover today or maybe some other time, because just I want to hear some feedback from you, whether you would be interested to know, for example, how we did experiment with stress or distraction. So you might be interested to see how different people respond to stress or to these distractions. How quickly they settle or how quickly they're not settling, what their strategy, how people respond to empathy tests in the brain profile, how people respond to various sensualization prompts, because we did an experiment where I asked mediums to smell, so they didn't know what it was. It was rose essential oil. To touch and sense the crystal, they didn't see it. Again, they were just holding a crystal in their hand. Connect with the person on the picture, travel to the place on the picture, and listen to the audio. So I tried to connect or involve as many senses as possible as some extra stimulant experiments. So it was fun to see what I found there as well. We did double meditations. Both of them produced interesting responses. Then it was interesting response to animal meditation, alpha keys, theta keys. So really there is abundance of information there. Definitely we are not covering all of this, but there is something that potentially we may go into. I'll start with the simple thing because I thought, first of all, it would be nice to remind us how we analyze mind mirror sessions, because as soon as I had all of these sessions recorded, I was facing myself with the question, how am I going to analyze it? How can I make it standardized more or less so that it's easy for me to compare one person to another and definitely see overall picture and don't miss anything interesting. So what are the main questions to ask and where to look for answers? I'll give you the list of questions first. So I think for all mind mirror practitioners, it might be helpful. And then in the next slides, I very briefly show what reports I was looking at and how to read them. And then we jump straight on into channeling experiments. So first of all, what is my session-to-session dynamics? What was my training level, or what training level I'm on, because you want to know if you make any progress from session to session. So how do we do that? I'll show you in a second. What was my dominant pattern? Was it awakened mind? Was it evolved mind? Or maybe I had a lot of gamma, so gamma synchrony was dominating. What was my signal quality? Did I have any electrical noise or any other signal abnormalities? How reliable are my data? Then, did I manage to open and sustain alpha bridge? Were there any moments when I was losing the bridge, and potentially why it happened? When were the deepest moments in the session? Were there any alpha-theta crossovers and when? And was there anything else which kind of was standing out, something unusual, unusual delta, unusual gamma activity, or anything else unusual? So session to session dynamics, it's now easy to check thanks to the portal, and it's in the very beginning as you log in to the portal and you look into dashboard and you choose to see your meditations in this trends overview, because you can see them as list and you can see them as trends. So these trends allow you to see the progress. So I picked this for you just to show, for example, how we progressed with Awakened Mind and Evolved Mind for the second module of the training. And I think it's a good representative example because you can really see improvement from day 1 to day 2. We started on 79% on Awakened Mind level 5, and we ended around 94, 96 on the next day with the best scores for Wise One, Theta keys, and our experiment. And the same, we can see we improved our scores even more significantly for Evolved Mind, starting somewhere around 68 and ending 1992, with the major progress after we did hemispheric balancing and brain activation exercises. So clearly you can see how important it is to integrate the brain. It's not just the balance, it's left and right working simultaneously and being kind of working in synchrony. That's the circle represented by the circle shape of this pattern. So dominant pattern, I find it useful too, because you can see how all other meditations on the day looked like this, but then experiment, the very last pattern definitely stands out with gamma. You probably can see a little artifact on the right, but still you can see there's definitely more going on top. You know, we see this kind of red head. Then dominant pattern also is well seen with the mind mirror summary plot, and it's just different dots that we can see on a timeline representing different patterns, like yellow dots for Awakened Mind. You can see on the top chart yellow, red, and some gamma. But then in the bottom chart, you can see gamma basically overriding everything else with just blue, blue, blue everywhere. So clearly you can see a difference. So first top chart was brain profile, bottom chart was mediumship experiment, and you see how gamma kicks in. Signal quality, of course, is important, and we can see it in my Mind Mirror Portal signal quality, and we can look at just signal quality data where line where it should be equal to 1, and I showed that it was signal was leaking somewhere in the middle of the session. We can look at spectral summary for any noise, and it will clearly show if there is any electrical noise. You can see the blue line in both left and right hemisphere, so clearly there was some noise. And then we can also look at SMG artifact amplitudes for any movement tension artifacts that may result in high gamma or high delta, which would be just an artifact, not the real data. So deepest moments, I often looked into dominant frequency. So whenever it drops, I assume this is the lowest, the deepest experience in the session. And it's always good to check what part of the meditation that was and ask yourself a question: what happened, what you were feeling, sensing, experiencing, and then explore a bit more with the composite display why this drop happened. Was it due to theta or due to delta? And then you may find some insights or potential landmarks there for yourself. Alpha bridge is best seen through composite display, where you can clearly see if there were any gaps, so it was disappearing or not, or if there were any theta peaking on top of green alpha waves. So I guess it's an easy way to find what was going on, where the alpha bridge was open or you were losing it at times, or delta was kicking in instead of alpha and becoming more dominant. So it's a good way to see with composite display. And then anything unusual, the same. So you'll see major unusual things with the composite display, like presented to you in the charts here, where you can see how alpha bridge was kind of overrun a bit by delta and gamma on top chart, and in the bottom chart you can see that there was a period of very intense delta. These are examples from today's presentation, so I explain a bit more later. And to the right, of course, when you replay the session, you can see some unusual things where, say, sticking out theta bands. If you remember, I pointed out that as well as something special for mediums, where they may be like double of the size of all other brainwave categories, and they kind of independently stretch to either side, one band or two bands, and I found that behavior of theta a bit unusual. So here we are, and I would like to present you the case with one medium. It wasn't my case, it was the case I received from Inge, who runs Wallacia Development Centre, the centre which invited me to do this training for them. And it was recorded by her and Andrea. Since this was not me, I prepared a cut from my other online meeting where Inge presents this experiment.
Yeah, the medium was Gary Mannion. He was doing a session in the cabinet, and his communicators allowed us to try to hook him up and see if they could work with us. And through that session, they also, the communicator came in and we could see delta and theta and then alpha. And he was then speaking to us, and he goes, and now you watch how I leave, and then everything collapsed in itself. So it was very interesting. And Andrea, who was taking the readings 2 years ago, was very excited. And I think Oxana also thinks that's a very interesting pattern for a deep trance medium who works as a physical medium with ectoplasm.
So here we see the baseline, and you can clearly see that mainly with eyes open, there is more like a normal pattern, more with here yellow waves of beta dominating, and then as soon as he closed his eyes, alpha is dominant. And the key here would be maybe to look at this summary plot where you can see lots of blue dots, which here represent delta generation. So let me remind you that delta is that major muscle that mediums use to do their work. So obviously, yeah, it's quite strong, and the high compliance levels, you know, on the high compliance levels 3, 4, 5, this delta is overrunning everything else. So obviously it's just very, very strong. And then you can see that during trance experiment, this is just one 5-minute experiment, this delta became even stronger, because now you can see even more dots on level 3. So it becomes even more intense on high levels. And also you can see that in trance, we can see that alpha opened up to allow for the flow, and there is kind of good rounded head, including some gamma there as well. So if you remember last time, I presented the dynamics of how the patterns evolve, what we may potentially observe when we are looking at mediums brainwaves. So we always start with the ordinary pattern, which looks like this, with lots of beta and a bottleneck for alpha, theta, maybe some delta. And then we always will see that during the true experiment, alpha will open up more and more to allow the flow of information to happen between subconscious theta and conscious beta minds. And then if there is gamma, this awakened mind may look like gamma synchrony, which has a little bit less potentially alpha and more beta and gamma on top of beta. And then we could see evolved mind pattern or universal consciousness, this circular pattern. So whenever awakened mind expands all bottlenecks even more, we will see that theta will start to, getting closer and closer to alpha, and the pattern becomes more balanced and circular, the pattern of unity or oneness, or the sweet spot, as one of the mediums put it. And then we can also observe channeling pattern where it starts looking like a skirt, where theta gradually becomes bigger than alpha and delta becomes bigger than theta, which would be a sleep pattern for normal people, but it's a channeling pattern obviously for mediums, and long-term meditators can go there too. And in extreme cases, we can see something which looks like nobody is at home, where all brainwave categories collapse, or sometimes there is only delta open, or which we can call near out of body or yoga nidra experience. So let's see how this happened in this particular experiment. So you can see I just created a few snapshots, and they are timed, so just through time. So he started with what we clearly can recognize as ordinary pattern. Then we can see that alpha started to open to establish the flow of information, allow for the flow. And then you can see that he was getting deeper, opening more theta, more delta. And you know that delta and gamma, they communicate. So you can see how, delta is opening and triggering more gamma on top as well. But who triggers whom is a big question here. There could be options or different cases. So then you can see how this searching channeling is rounding up into what we we evolved mind, or again with gamma it would be universal consciousness pattern, more and more approximating the circle. And then we go back to awakened mind here, channeling pattern here, channeling pattern kind of narrowing down here, and that's what we see as the average or summary pattern for the session. So we still see that alpha bridge definitely is there, so it wasn't just mind talking, there was something going on. Here is the second experiment where the demonstration happened of how he was actually living to let someone else in. These are snapshots which started after the beginning of the experiment, and you can see on top A50, A15, etc. These are amplitudes. So amplitudes are the volume, or like in music you would say which brainwave category, which tonality was the loudest, right? In that particular moment, who was playing loudest in the orchestra. So you can see that we started with delta amplitudes increasing, and we are watching this on 50 amplitude, right? Then it dropped back to 15, and again delta is dominant. Then delta started going even bigger, growing bigger, so now we are watching at 60. Then it goes back to 17. So you can see these jumps in amplitudes. It looks like each time delta gets, almost like in waves, bigger and bigger. It's like you take the weight and then you take a bigger weight, or you can see it as leaps or jumps. You jump even further, even higher. So, and then we can see delta going almost to 70, and all other brainwave categories are collapsing to insignificant compared to delta here. And then we are looking at delta on 90. So it's really unusual how this unfolds. And let me just make it on the large screen for you. So it looks like this was one of the moments when Gary was leaving out, as I put it. And leaving the door, delta is our connection with the universal field, leaving the door wide open while living. And I just want to show you that, you know, all signal quality lights and everything is green, and it doesn't look like any artifact or any major mistake there. It all looks pretty clean. And then you can see that few moments later, there is again some activity, normal activity going on. So it looks like someone is in and the door is still wide open on 90. And then again, the collapsing happens and delta is still huge and someone's disappearing again. And then at 1749, it looks like there is almost normal pattern back on like 20 of amplitude, where it looks like someone is back in with like no stress and in good condition. I here presented the delta wave for you to see what happened. You can see delta was pretty quiet before the beginning of the experiment, and then it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, as if in waves. And then here, it might not that be clearly seen, but that picture of 13 minutes 41 seconds that I showed where all brainwaves collapsed, it was here. So I left delta behind or out on this composite display to allow us to see beta, alpha, theta amplitudes and see how they behaved. So you can see the normal, and then they disappear. And then it happens at some stage again. And then here, at the same time when that happened, we were measuring pulse rate and galvanic skin response. So you could also see, I think I showed this slide last time, but I also added some Inge's comment to it. You can see that not only brain waves collapse, so we can see that brain waves correlated with other biofeedback measurements that we can take with the mind mirror. We can see that pulse rate dropped, GSR dropped as well, but you can see how it was straight line until the experiment starting and how the arousal was going up and then dropped again when there was this major electrical event happening. I'll go to the next slide and you'll hear Inge explaining, potentially explaining this very moment, because I wasn't there and she's also a medical nurse, so she knows a bit more about physiology.
Ectoplasm explosion. They released ectoplasm and the heart rate dropped to about 8 beats a minute. I believe that's what it would be.
And then I'll move on to the next channeling experiment. We'll continue with the case where Cindy was participating. Just again, the reminder what I will be looking at or pointing at. In the previous presentation during the previous program, I told that mediums will show similar pattern dynamics, the one we just refreshed. They will show alpha with eyes open very often. They may show sticking out independent theta bands, which was surprising or unusual for me to see. And my hypothesis is that it's something like holding the link or establishing the link. Then they show connection, strong connection with the group that they do sit-ins with or trainings with, and their spirit group, of course. And then, of course, they show very strong delta, 10 or even 20 times higher than the average person, not 3 to 12 microvolts. It may be the whole way above 100 microvolts. And then we may see some unusual and strong gamma activity. And I described gamma as a booster. It's not the prerequisite, but it may kick in the moments when mediums need extra sensitivity or extra processing power. It's like extra power that comes with gamma, and we've seen it with table tipping experiments in the previous presentation, and we'll see it again today. Here are the brain waves, and I didn't show brain profile this time because I found that sometimes it's more reliable to see just all other sessions, all other experiments or meditations in the day to see the difference, because brain profile, it was done many weeks ago, it may not be as relevant. Here you can see these were all other experiments and trainings that we did, training sessions, and here is the experimental session, and you clearly see it. Yes, it's like a awakened mind, but there's clearly more gamma, so I would assume we may look at gamma synchrony as well here. And though you can see a little artifact in the right hemisphere, there's still definitely much more gamma, and we'll double check that with all other reports that we may potentially get. So I discovered is gamma was really, really strong. It would show up on very, very high compliance levels. So like if all other experiments you see from that training were like 2-4 gamma synchrony on this level, for this particular experiment, the number went to 9% on level 4. I know it's still insignificant, but it's super, super, high. Just look here, the summary plot will kind of replicate the same. So we remember we are looking at the same data, just sliced and served differently, right? In different numbers or shapes or colors. So Mind Mirror summary plot once again will prove that, oh yes, definitely there is more gamma there. And let's double check with the amplitudes. Let's see how delta behaved. And yes, we can see delta peaks here, here, and here, and they correspond with the low and mid gamma activity. Say here and here and here and here. You can clearly see two very pronounced segments where delta and gamma were active in both hemispheres, by the way, left and right hemispheres. And here I picked probably the largest peaks for the session, around 1034 and 1934, and you can see how they look like. Around 1034, it makes the pattern look like near out of body, because in the scale of a huge delta, all other brainwave categories look insignificant, so they almost disappear. Clearly, during the experiment, yes, we did mediumship experiment, and during these periods, there was channeling happening. So it exactly these peaks, these lumps, they clearly depict and reflect that. Here we can see the same data, and we can see the composite display, and it gives you a bit more information. So we can see delta happening here, delta peaks. Then we can see delta, and then gamma kicks in and channeling happens. And then again delta, and then gamma kicks in and channeling happens. Busy gamma segment is reflected here with more blue gamma dots on the highest compliance level, level 4 and level 3 as well. Here is again experimental session, and I'm showing you the composite display where you can see all brainwave categories and how they evolved and what happened. And with the yellow marker here, I mark the most obvious kind of sticking out theta bands where theta was really remarkably standing out. I'm just showing you how easy it is to see this sticking out theta in the composite display, and then you can use the timed replay. You can just say go to minute 4 and you'll see this particular picture. It corresponds to this sticking out theta here. So it's really easy to analyze and find these things in the Mind Mirror portal now. So you see it wasn't very long session, but there were quite a few sticking out theta bands starting from the very beginning. And interestingly, it looks like it's always the lowest theta band, again and again, right or left, and doesn't matter, or both sides. Sometimes it's kind of going out together with delta, but at other times it's just absolutely independent, or at least significantly larger than other brainwave categories, which, you know, made me think I need to point this out. And especially if this is repetitive and this is the same band, it looks really, really suspicious. So straight from the beginning of this experiment, I felt, okay, I can see something is happening. I can see delta building up almost like in waves, as we saw before. You know, it's growing, there is the peak, it rolls back, and then it's growing again, and then it rolls back, and then it's growing again, and then it rolls back, and then growing and rolls back. So it kind of comes and goes in waves. And I said, okay, delta is searching for connection. A good metaphor that I like to use for delta is like fishermen throwing the net for the fish, or searching, scanning the unified field. And then as soon as I see something like this, it feels like, okay, something might happen. It may be that we've caught the fish, that the fish is there. Maybe it's a bad metaphor, but it really kind of helps me to make sense out of what's going on. And I can tell you more that from my subjective experience, I'm not that experienced in working with mediums at all. I'm still consider myself an absolute beginner, but the closer we were getting to the channeling moments, the more I started to feel goosebumps, like chill on my back, goosebumps, and then I see, okay, delta is working. I can see this unusual sticking theta bands, so it looks like we're establishing the connection. And then I feel these goosebumps, which kind of is triple proof to me, okay, something is going to happen. And then more experienced Inge, of course, she was saying, okay, come in, okay, you're welcome, or something. She was saying some welcoming words to encourage spirit to come through and communicate with us. So these were two people experiments. So I'll show you, both of them were channeling. So this is another person, and you can say that probably there were two other training sessions on that day where gamma was even more active than during this particular experiment for the second medium. So again, we are looking at the average summary patterns for all other sessions on the day. But again, the last one, the previous one was, you see, House of Doors, how it looked like. And then this was the very last one after that. So clearly from here to here, you can see more gamma. Again, let's double check it with all other scores. And as I said, it's good to see higher, on higher levels, you'll see the difference. You'll see more gamma dots on higher compliance levels. Interestingly, I can tell you that this first period here was when medium 2 was speaking. And then since she was participating in the room, in the field, in the session, she even was shooting gamma when the first medium was speaking, here and here. I found it quite interesting. And then we'll look at both of them to see how they correlated. So again, what we can see for the second medium, basically we can see some active gamma. You see two peaks in the very beginning, and then we can see rise in low gamma amplitude and mid gamma and even some upper gamma amplitude. And surprisingly, if you compare left and right hemisphere here for gamma, you'll see much more response from the right hemisphere, which doesn't look like very obvious artifact to me. It looks more like there is something more happening in the right hemisphere. Why I say this, because it kind of correlates with the other side, with the left hemisphere, Plus, if we look at other sessions, I can see that this medium has a trend to activate or involve more right hemisphere during experiments. So you see we did sensualization experiment and can see more right hemisphere or like more active right hemisphere here and more active right hemisphere when we did when we were testing the theta keys. So I make an assumption that the right one was more active here as well, and it's impressive to see even activity in upper gamma, which is, I bet Judith will say it's a lot. You know, when you see low gamma, it's a lot, but when you can see even movement in upper gamma, I think it's impressive. And here I pointed out the biggest peaks, delta peaks, which happened in 226 and 806. So basically it was searching, stretching, looking for, and then after minute 10, the channeling active part started in here. So delta surge will always precede the active part, and then it will be followed by kind of intense gamma. In this chart, this is composite display, where I isolated purple delta waves and red and pink gamma waves. As I mentioned before, you can see delta growing, delta peak, and then gamma kicks in. And then you can see delta building up again, and then another kick in gamma. So it's kind of more obvious here. And then there is always rise in gamma after delta peaks. So I circled these moments, and again, let me point out, so here it was main channeling part for medium 2, plus it looks like she was contributing in participating and supporting the field for another medium with responsive delta and gamma, as we saw before in a summary plot in the dots. So here is the full overall session dynamics. You can see 10:52, 13:05. So this was the active part where this medium 2 was speaking, and then 16:50 to 20:37 was first part for another medium, but this one was supporting clearly. And then 23 and 25 here, she was supporting it too. You can see this big delta spike before the channeling started for another medium, big delta spike before the channeling started for another medium. So obviously we all are in the field. We obviously can sense it and pick it. And even inexperienced me, I could sense, you know, goosebumps, and probably they come with delta as well. So this medium didn't show as many sticking out theta bands, but they were present as well. And they were mainly present before she started talking. So it was 8, 9, 9, and at 10 something she started talking just before that. And then here it's interesting to see the shift from sticking theta to gamma. It's a bit unusual. We are used to delta and gamma communicating, but here it looks like, okay, the fish is in the fish or connection there, and then it wants to communicate, or it triggers response, it triggers something. So here I decided to put together the composite displays for both mediums, and by red frame, I tried to mark. I didn't have a special program to run any correlation between them, but at least visually you can see that there were high peaks in delta preceding the active, where they both were shooting high delta peaks, preceding the active channeling part. So the blue one will be the first active channeling. And actually this was second medium was talking first, but you can see how much the first medium was shooting delta beforehand. So again, it looks like we obviously are in the same field and sensing and communicating and supporting each other. then I saw like around 16 minutes, another, peaks in this period just before the second active channeling part started, where the first medium was speaking. And then again, the same, you can see peak here and peak delta peak here. And then the active channeling part started for the first medium again. But you can see peak here as well. They kind of correlate. So I found it like unusual, and if I had a chance to really run through a proper program where it's not my eye comparing the data, but it's the program putting things together, we probably will find even more correlation. And then I was trying to see if there were any similarities in timing of sticking out bands, but as I said, the second medium didn't show as many, but still there were some or more just before her active channeling part. So look, 8, 8, 9, 9, and here 8, 9, 9, 9. So I found it quite interesting too. Here was the second channeling case. If you have questions, you are very, very welcome to ask them. And if you like, we can look together, because when you see them play live, it's definitely different when you see them static on the screen in various charts. Plus, this particular session was recorded with the voice recording function of the Mind Mirror. And besides the music that we were listening to, you can hear, sorry, the sound quality wouldn't be that great, but you will clearly see the beginning and end of the active channeling session. Watch it now with me, because I can play it through the listers for you. The whole session will be about half an hour. It's fascinating to watch them. And of course, through audio recording, you not only are watching the brain waves, dancing and moving, and it's hypnotizing in itself. You are listening to beautiful music that we were listening during this experiment. And, it starts with Deva Primal, and it's interesting in itself, because we used this same track many times during these trainings, and it's Hari Om Shiva Om. And I was surprised. I was like, clearing my eyes. It's like, is it a glitch, or do I see on the sound Om everybody opening theta? It looked like two groups were like Hari Om, Shiva Om, and theta amplitude goes up. And I thought, that's interesting. I need to double check that, because it looks like a glitch. Am I imagining it, that everybody is just responding kind of, like in the choir, the brain waves in the choir responds to the sound of Om, which kind of does make some sense. Because any connection with God, unconditional love, acceptance, will amplify your theta.
Well, in this case, maybe it would be very cool to watch it with you. I wanted to ask you, what do you mean alpha keys, theta keys, and experimentation? Is experimentation just an open channeling session?
When I mention alpha keys and theta keys, let me explain. We did few exercises and meditations, and I was giving time for mediums to self-train. So the self-training looked like, yes, you can try to train alpha with eyes open, right? Because it shouldn't be a problem for them anyway. But I wanted them to become aware of how alpha feels like, when it's open. What's
So
the
it's
feeling?
landmarks.
And then check their own landmarks, what they think would work for them. So I said, okay, do self-training, and you can say start with eyes closed, and then very slowly and gradually open your eyes, like you think about or imagine something, and then you open your eyes and see if you have alpha. If it disappears after, that's okay, but you should see your response. Was it there or not, and how strong? and try different landmarks, different triggers that you may think of, because we discussed what are common, you know, like images of nature, different sensations as you go into detail of sensing something in detail through all your 5 senses. So, or just thinking for theta, it was more thinking about things that you love, you know, dogs, kids, spirit guides, and it was surprising what people were coming up with. And then I said, okay, and now I'll run the experiment, because it was probably hard for you to test yourself. Pick 3 landmarks for alpha that you think are the best for you. Pick 3 for theta, and let's check them. What was the strongest landmarks for you? That's what I call alpha keys and theta keys. So, and then in Mind Mirror Portal, I could clearly see 3 segments, and I could analyze, okay, I looked at it this way: where was maximum, biggest, largest alpha amplitude, or probably the best awakened mind scores? In which segment for alpha? This would be your key for alpha. Or for evolved mind, where would be the largest evolved mind scores? Because the theta would be bigger in evolved mind, and where was the biggest theta? And that key was the strongest. And I mean, as I said, every single bit, I was thinking about it last night, every single exercise can be worth, you know, being reviewed to see how people may respond, or what's going on, or how you can analyze it, because there are lots of insights in it. And I mean, Cindy was the absolute champion from, she repeated one module twice. Second module twice, which I really appreciate. And she was absolute champion in terms of, she started with intermittent alpha, where she could open it, but she was losing it. It was like open and then it's hard to sustain. So, you know, it's a common problem for many people when you start like this. You open, but again, something, your mind is too active, something triggers thoughts, and it just steals the energy and makes your alpha bridge collapse. But she finished with absolutely beautiful, stable, strong, perfect alpha, and moreover with very good awareness and her own keys. And Cindy, if you don't mind, could you say a few words? I can tell you, even during this channeling experiment, so medium 1, I can tell you the secret, it was Cindy, medium 1, and even during channeling part, she was channeling, my alpha, I shouldn't lose my alpha. It's very hard to hold this alpha. The flow, the connection, it's hard to hold it. Cindy, could you say a word? Because you developed this awareness, very good awareness of how to keep it open.
I don't know. It's just a matter of, as I say, being present, but without, you know, letting the analytical mind take over, and without falling asleep at the same time. It's just a matter of, I suppose, part of it's going within, and just not letting everyday life get in the way, and not being disconnected at the same time. Okay, so if it was through the guided meditations, then it would be more focusing on an inner visual of where I was, placing myself in that particular scenario and going with it. It's like when people first start meditating, it's like their mind's always interfering. So you need to be able to calm that mind and get into that space. And it was the same with the guided meditations that came with that. It's all right, I can see where I am. Okay, I can feel that wind on my face, or it's just a matter of letting the mind, you know, go with what's been presented to you, what's been asked of you.
Without pushing too much, without interfering too much, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As ignoring your surroundings, because you are with a group of people, you know, you're plugged in. So it's being able to ignore that and just focus on the task ahead.
Okay, thank you. No, I think that's enough. That's a very good description. I like your way of, you're very eloquent and putting things together. Anybody else? The feedback?
Just from a clinical standpoint, I'm looking at the maps, or at the waveforms, and I'm trying to get straight in my head, like, if this is a skill that these folks are perfecting, or are they born with it? And if they're born with it and they're making this high theta and high beta, are these the kids that are being diagnosed with ADD and having trouble, you know, sitting in the classroom because they have this capability and they just haven't learned to work with it yet?
Paula, I haven't done any clinical tests, which we discussed with Gary, and which probably would be wise to do if I have to continue with the trainings, because it's very likely we will find the connection. Because as we discussed, I think last time, all these people, they're extra sensitive, or I mean, hypervigilance comes hand in hand with high strong delta. So extra sensitivity and hypervigilance, with both, in both cases, we'll see, you know, the same very active delta. So my only kind of understanding of it is that it's the same tool, the same muscle, it's just how you are using it. You know, I don't think, maybe you are born with it, but I'm more suspecting that it's just the way you were shaped, your nervous system, the way you interact with the world makes you this open and hypersensitive, and then various life situations as you grow, they contribute and make you even more sensitive. You know, we I think when Judith mentioned last time, there most likely there was some experience, not of violence or abuse or anything that cracked you open, anything that really made you that sensitive. But as long as the person is not suffering from it or is aware of it and kind of can use it in his own and other people's benefit, I suppose it's fine. It's healthy to develop like a good sense of, you know, where you are, where other people are, good sense of your boundaries, and then learn to take care of your boundaries so that you stay, you know, safe and sane and healthy. Did I answer your question?
Can I?
Kind
Sorry.
kind of. It makes sense. I just wondered, you know, as far as childhood history, if they struggled as children, if it is an kind of an underlying pattern that they learn to develop or is shaped by their history, you know, or are these some of these the kids that struggle in school that, you know, we try to train them out of this state rather than nurture it?
I'll add two things. I think most of people are predisposed. You know, mediums will be predisposed to this. Plus, I'll ask Cindy to confirm me or disapprove me if I'm wrong, that most of people who come across this work, they say, I mean, they in this or that way guided to this work. You know, they are attracted to this work, or they would even say, I have a contract with the other side. I feel, even I may not like it, but that's something I have to live with. I have to be with it, and that's my service. So if people want to excel this, you can't stop them, right? And
Right,
I say
right.
there's nothing wrong in pushing these boundaries of your extra sensitivity. Plus, I highly recommend again to watch the Surviving Death series, because the very first episode, I think, was about people who survived near-death experience. And sometimes it made them extra sensitive. So they opened this door and they
Right.
couldn't close it back. And they were finding problems because they said, we started seeing and sensing more than before, more than we want to sense, but we can't close the door back.
Thank you.
Paula, I can add a little something. I see Robert wants to add something too. And so I think ultimately, of course, this is my hypothesis because I haven't hooked up 100,000 people to prove it. But I think that it's true that Oksana says that some people are predisposed, but also predisposed by their life experiences. People who have this high amplitude theta, you're right, that is ADD, ADHD, and they'll also have high amplitude alpha and very often high amplitude delta. The main difference is that those typically kids who grow into adults will have low beta. And so then you have almost a fork in the road for these people who have this potential with those lower frequency, high amplitudes and the lower alpha, theta, delta frequencies. One will be if they're open to this kind of thing. If they're not open to it, they're not going to have that mediumship experience. I mean, I've never heard of a situation where it just turned on in somebody all of a sudden. Typically, if it turns on, it happens when they're children. You know, they're aware as children that there are spirits. But and then the other part of the fork would be that they would say, I'm very highly sensitive, I'm very creative, I do perceive the existence of something other than this material world, and they have the brain waves, then they can, with their high amplitude theta and delta, generate that gamma that you see prevalent. Oksana has shown so prevalent in the medium she studied. And then they can walk through the doorway. But as with everything else, I think it's going to be a choice. There's a predisposition in the sense that ADD will have that brainwave pattern, but they have to make a choice and have to be open to it. And if they're not, like as for the rest of us, it's not going to happen.
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Judith, you said someone else wanted to say a word.
Yeah,
Robert.
I had kind of a question. You've touched on it with what Judith was just saying, and you may have touched on it on the earlier one. I didn't get to watch. I've been through some challenging stuff going on physically. But I've got a friend who's interested in mediumship, and she's been studying with James von Prague, and came up with a different interpretation than I'd heard before, where they distinguish between the type of mediumship I think you were describing here, whether the ectoplasm and spirits taking over and entering in, and the other type of mediumship in which they're just extremely clairvoyant, are able to communicate with consciousness on the other side, if you can say other side, since everything's intermingled. But anyway, so out of all this, you've touched on the importance of delta and some of the other patterns, but in terms of the mind mirror, if she were wanting to pursue that, what might be the type, and I think you addressed this once before, maybe it's something online about people that wanted to employ the mind mirror to enhance their mediumship, but from the type of mediumship I'm talking about, von Prague talking about, of just increasing clairvoyance and connection, what might be an appropriate training program for her to undergo on the mind mirror to help open up to that?
I'll highly recommend to watch the previous program, because that's where I was talking about how Mind Mirror can help mediums, what were the requests that I received, and how I addressed this request, right? But I guess in any case, be it this physical manifestation with ectoplasm, however, I mean, if you can call it this way, or if this is mental psychic mediumship, in all of them you may expect the same dynamics, which means we still need to get out of our beta mind, right? This is the ordinary pattern where beta is dominant. So I would say that definitely a prerequisite for anybody to, prove and show that there is true mediumship work happening, true channeling happening, or that would be the alpha bridge open and the flow established so that communication becomes possible, right? So clearly it will be any exercises aimed to reduce beta and increase alpha. I'll just finish with the patterns and then show you what I've done. So, of course, beta, making sure we know all techniques of how to master beta, and open alpha. So we start with beta reduction techniques, all exercises we know for beta mastery, and then concentration exercises sometimes work well as well. And you can see that for many people, starting with the diffused body awareness is probably the best point to start, where they have most stable alpha and quite beta. Just start with yourself, with your body. So relaxation techniques, of course, then alpha sensualization to make sure that alpha is maximized. So we not only know how to open alpha bridge, we can keep it stable because we build awareness about what triggers, what landmarks, or how it feels like when alpha is open, and then we kind of try to access and tune in to maximum volume all sensory channels that, you know, help to establish strong alpha. So all alpha sensualization exercises would work. Animal meditation is a good conclusion or test to see how stable and good it works. And then, as I said, very often this is a dynamic. So from ordinary partner, we have to establish the flow, open alpha, and that's what we call awakened mind. And then the next step could be either channeling or evolved mind. It depends. So that's why the arrows dance like this. So very often I would see just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 3, 2. So it's just like a dance, but the order might be different. So very often after you opened your alpha, you will start sliding deeper and start opening your theta more than alpha, and then maybe search with your delta more, going into something like channeling pattern, which, as I said, normal people may simply fall asleep. If they're non-meditators, if they're not mediums, they'll just drift into sleep. For long-term meditators and mediums, this is quite common pattern. They're still awake. They're just searching, Googling, kind of when I say this delta actively working, channeling cosmic internet for information that goes beyond their own repository. They need to go beyond and search for information there. So it's kind of more advanced level, far more advanced where we normally go. And then after you searched, or before that, as I said, it's 1, 2, 3 or 1, 3, 2. You kind of round up your delta and everything goes into a circular pattern that we called evolved mind, but it's also a pattern of unity, of oneness. And again, I'll repeat myself. In the previous program, I was giving examples that interestingly, natural mediums spend a lot of time in this pattern of oneness, connectedness, and unity. And that makes me think that their brain kind of is naturally predisposed or found its way to more optimal state that feels good as well, you know, that feels open and connected. So a metaphor that I used was when you open your alpha bridge, you pick up the phone to dial the number, and then channeling is more like you're dialing the number, you're searching, trying to connect. And then as soon as connection is established and kind of the line is busy, you are plugged in or connected, you'll get this circular evolved mind pattern. So to train that, we very well know what we do. Let me just go back to the program. So that's what I did. So here is the description of with theory and practice, but it may sound a bit more complicated. So on the right side, I simply listed the exercises, the practical part, right? So we did brain profile with eyes open. Of course, in my case, for groups, adapted for group session, to see what's the baseline with eyes open, how does their normal brain waves, you know, behave. and then brain profile with eyes closed. So we were doing a relaxation meditation. So for me, it was the baseline of how far they can go in the beginning of the training, the best they can do, because if people can open, if you can open evolved mind, you'll easily go into evolved mind as soon as you start relaxing, and especially if you know our meditations well, when you reach that place of peace and your center and stillness and silence. So you'll get to evolved mind if you can open it. And then we did mediumship experiment and just to see what's their dynamics when they're trying to do mediumship work. In particular, we were doing building power to see, because this is an important first step before you can connect with anybody. You need to build the energy, or you need to uplift your spirit. And again, please revisit the previous program, because I was talking even about the emotional scale and how it works, and how potentially it can correlate with our brain waves. So again, building power, I can tell you or remind you another secret. Building power or sitting in one's power will often mean sitting in evolved mind state. That's the state of power. That's the state of oneness. That's the state of unity and connectedness. So then, of course, as I said, to get out of ordinary state, because even if you are very experienced, you may still have various problems with thoughts or hard emotional content. You know, however you may be annoyed with beta, it's good to know all techniques that we have at hand. So mastering beta exercises are good, concentration exercises are good. Then we did stress experiment and recover from stress. That was super interesting, because you know how to get more relaxed. You need to make your muscles as tense as possible, or to get rid of some, you know, difficult situation memory. You amplify it to make it really ridiculous, to the extent it becomes absolutely absurd and ridiculous, and then you let go. It allows you to let go of it. So the same, interestingly, worked when we did mastering beta, we did concentration, then we did Stroop tests. So everybody was very stressed and kind of hearts pumping, but then recover from stress after that took everybody to even more relaxed, deep state than before. So as if we, you know, made our muscles as tense as possible, we accelerated stress to maximum, and then we were relaxing, and it allowed us to relax even more. And then we did experiment with distraction, where I was like dropping a book and dropping a bowl in the middle of the session, where I said, your task is to sit and hold your state, no matter what. You're holding your state. So, and use the techniques that we learned to stay in this state, in your power, and not lose it no matter what. And it was interesting to see how quickly some were restoring their bridge, restoring their oneness if they were sitting in evolved mind, or how hard it was for others. And you can see even it's not just the moment where you hear the noise, and of course your senses will respond, right? So you'll see like beta responding, alpha probably responding, even delta responding with flight or fight, because there is something, oh, is it dangerous? Is it? But then if you are okay, you quickly pull yourself back, or even you don't lose your alpha bridge. Or with others, they were completely like lost, and there were ripples of distress. So even after the accident itself, they were still repeating and reliving it in their brain again and again and again, and couldn't let go. So, I mean, it's a beautiful metaphor for life as well. And that's why I think this stress and response to stress is even worth maybe separate program with examples of different response strategies and what and how natural mediums, you know, 1, 2 on the, they don't lose the bridge, or in 2 seconds they restore the bridge. That's the mastery. That's the level. So it's good to know your boundaries, because if you're hypersensitive or you're predisposed, knowing how you feel, where are your borders, your conscious self, your subconscious self, just yourself, and when you start inviting others into your bubble, how it feels like. Do you feel safe? you don't feel safe, what you can do if you don't, just to better explore and become aware. Again, train your boundaries. I find the bubble great for that. So that's what we did in module 1. This is a weekend training, basically Saturday, Sunday. And then module 2 was devoted to building alpha, tuning it to maximum. So alpha sensualization exercises that we know. I just in the beginning of this program described the experiment that we did. I can go into more detail later if you like on that. Animal is a great meditation to find an animal landmark, this beingness, the state of beingness that you live in when you're doing animal meditation is good. Then we did self-training, visual self-training for alpha keys and theta keys. And then, as I described, if you want to go deeper, it means you need to go into your theta more, you need to open your hearts more. So any deeper subconscious exploration will help. And of course, House of Doors is our favorite meditation that allows you at least to go there, for some people for the first time ever, into subconscious and clean your cellars, clean what's going on there, sort it out, balance left and right. And after that, brain activation or balancing, hemispheric balancing exercises, they contribute a lot to brain integrity and to evolved mind. I did the program a long time ago in 2017. You can watch it, it's available, how to do this. And these were the exercises that we did. They're actually physical exercises that you do, some breathing, some yoga, some NLP. I combine everything into one. And they definitely work, as you could see. And then allowing any meditations that you merge with light, that you allow to merge, that you connect with unconditional love. Like Wise One was a beautiful meditation to help us to learn this allowing, going deeper into state, or maybe even deeper than that. You may go even into channeling. Cosmic waves, it has integrated gamma frequencies. I saw almost every single person responding with at least low gamma rise during the white noise. There is a white noise segment in this cosmic waves meditation. So it wasn't like gamma training per se, but many drifted into channeling states or even light sleep. So it was very, very deep. And the goal was to try deeper trance, because the request was, how can we go deeper? And I assume if I had to lay out the patterns in a way how they go deeper, it will be awakened mind, evolved mind, channeling, and out of body or near out of body. So that would be my layout, and that's what we were trying to do. So I hope I answered your question. If you need more, I could provide more later.
Thank you.
We are running out of time, but you will learn a lot from my previous program. Tell me what...
Can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
Can I just add something so briefly? With physical mediums, anyone can be a medium, anyone at all. With physical mediums, most really good ones are born natural. And you'll find there seems to be a bit of a correlation with autism when it comes to physical mediums. With trance mediums and mental mediums, that's something that can be developed. Some people are natural at it, some people have to work at it. With the James Van Praagh thing, I'm just trying to cross everything at the moment. I presume he's teaching mental mediumship, which is totally different to, say, the altered states that some of us are trying to develop. Mental mediumship is having that connection with spirit. Altered states is letting spirit actually take control. Okay, that was a brief one. I know you're running out of time.
And Robert, may I just add that attaining the awakened mind pattern is a great place for your friend to start, because that is the pattern of the psychic, the intuitive, insightful pattern. That's a perfect place to start. And then everything develops out of that.
Okay, thank all three of you for your, wow, that was much more than I expected from that question.
The different awarenesses. I presume, as I say, with James Van Praagh, his teachings, it would be more mental psychic mediumship, which is totally an awareness. It's then having that connection. As I say, with the altered states, it's more getting yourself down into that state where you don't want to interrupt. You want to let them take over. You want to let them get across what they need to get across. So, you know, she may not be, depending on what she's aiming for, may not, what Oxana takes us through may not be actually that beneficial to her unless she has a predisposed disposition or a faculty that's going to bring that out of her.
Got it. Thank you. That was superb. And I love the metaphors you gave as well, to explaining those different places. Superb. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cindy. I'm so glad you made it. What I suggest for now, because we are running out of time, I'll just quickly, there are just a few slides, touch the last healing experiment. So we'll touch the 3 big experiments today, and I'll leave you with a couple of bonuses to watch later at home. And then if you would like to know more about I have things like how people like empathic response, stress response, different strategies, merging with others, sensualization experiments. So I've done much more than planned initially. Everything is interesting, and there were lots of insights. You know, every single session is just loads and loads of insights. So for now, let's just cover this one, because I know that you know, these days many are interested in healer and healee and healing and how it works. So this was a healing experiment, and here I showed the brainwave sessions for healer and healee during experimental session and during brain profile. So what you can see that for healer, healer is kind of naturally having lots of gamma, and though it says brain profile eyes closed, I can tell you that with the training we managed to develop even bigger and better alpha bridge than this, because here it's like very close and competing with beta. You can see how the brain waves behaved. This is average summary for the session for the healer. Lots of gamma, but very organized pattern and good proper alpha bridge. And then you can see for the healee that there's not as much or hardly any gamma there, and her average normal pattern very often resembles, it's not quite perfect, we need much bigger upper theta band, but it's still awakened mind very close to evolved mind. It's just, and too much probably of alpha there for evolved mind as well, as Judith mentioned when I asked her about this. So you can clearly see that there was the flow open for both of them. If I compare their summary plots, you can see how healer was actively running gamma, because on the highest compliance level you can see red dot, which stands for evolved mind, and then blue dots, and then the next level down again blue, 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 blue. So gamma overruns everything. And for a healee, you will see that she was mainly sitting in red, evolved mind, and yellow dots stand for awakened mind. So that's where she mainly was receiving the healing. And here is the composite display again, which speaks for itself, and you can clearly see standing out active healing phase. So there couldn't be like second opinion about that. And you can see delta waves extending almost next to 90 microvolts. So for me, it was obvious, you know, it was hands-on healing. So I could see that this was the active healing phase. And then there was kind of integration phase afterwards. So as for healee, you can see that, you know, extremely high alpha, which could be a sign of some mental disorder. Clinical people will know better, or could also be the sign of a creative personality, which she is a creative person, musician and art. So obviously it's not surprising to see so much alpha there. If I get rid of alpha and look at theta, I would see that, yeah, heart was open as well. So here is the next slide showing that. So I just got rid of everything except purple delta waves and blue theta waves. I just marked it out because I found it was interesting to see this theta spike, basically the largest theta spike in the session in the very beginning. As the active phase of healing started, she really opened her theta. If you again can make a metaphor, you can say she opened her heart more to receive the healing. That was it for the healing experiment. Let's agree that I potentially will think, if you want another program on any of the exercises or tasty bites, I called it tasty bites with little pieces interesting. Now I leave you with the promise of this bonus that I prepared. There is an audio interview with Karen, with Natural Psychic Medium, and she will give you insights about how she feels in the state, how she prepares for her sessions. And she actually was the one who called the evolved mind pattern the sweet spot, the being in the power spot. And she opened evolved mind almost immediately as she was hooked up. You see second 40 of the baseline with eyes open, brain profile, eyes open. The very first hooked up session, she's already in evolved mind. I'll leave you with 2 bonuses to watch. This interview to listen, and I'll record the 2 medium channeling experiment, and that will be your home task to see how much you could see, from pattern dynamics, sticking out thetas, unusual delta gamma behavior, and what you could find yourself. You will receive the link to this recording and to this presentation, plus 2 bonuses and homework to do. Any questions, any wishes? If you want the next program, what particular questions or insights you would be interested in?
There's a Zoom group on tonight. It comes on every fortnight. Tonight, Inga's speaking, and it's about mediumship. So if anybody wants to know about physical mediumship or even the healing aspect of a physical trance medium who does the healing, she's doing a talk tonight and question and answers. Normally, Gary's actually there going into trance once a fortnight, and he still might be on tonight too. So you'll be able to see an actual trance medium going into trance, and people will be able to ask any question that they would like. So if anyone's interested in that Zoom.
Cindy, could you maybe send the link in chat to everyone, and then I'll follow up in the email afterwards?
In Sydney at 7 p.m.
Okay, it depends, because I'm not sure, it might be very early morning or even night to some of our participants, but
about say in New York it's 4 a.m.
yeah. So anyway, thank you very much. I shared it to everyone via chat, and I'll include this in follow-up message. Probably it would be better to give not just the Zoom link, but to give some Facebook page or somewhere where people we could all follow up. And you know, if we can't participate this time, we may have some burning questions about healing or trance or mediumship. Now, questions, comments, wishes, what you'd like to know next. You want separate psychic training for yourself?
Sure.
Tasty bites. You like the idea of tasty bites, Judith?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, more tasty bites.
So I showed you what my program was. I'm very open in sharing everything with you. So you've seen what practical exercises and experiments we did. So I can literally just go, you know, in logical order one by one and share the insights, because I found it quite amazing. Not just the mediums, not just mediums training and experiment. It's generic response. How do we respond to stress? How do we dwell on it, and what happens if we do? Where it can take us, or how one of the people said, of participants said, Oh, I heard it, but it took me even deeper. And I thought that's the ultimate mastery. Something disturbs you. There's strong incoming stimuli, but it takes you even deeper into your state, into your power, into your strength. Isn't it good?
That would be amazing, Oxana.
Okay. And then
I'd love
empathy,
to.
empathic response. What do you do? You know, how again, I told that mediums contain the empathic response. So contain, how would that look like from the point of view on brainwaves? So it's very good how they respond, and they hold it in a nice, warm, receiving heart space. They go back to evolved mind. They kind of open their delta a little bit and then go back, but they still have empathic response. You can't argue, you'll see it. You know, even they say, I didn't have strong response, but they were listening with their hearts. They were getting emotional, but they quickly pulled them together, sitting in their power and being strong and connected. So
That would be incredible.
enjoy the interview, because sorry, it's just audio, so you can listen it as a podcast, download it from YouTube. I'll send you probably both MP3 and video links. It's a beautiful one, and again, it will give you an idea of where natural psychic medium is coming from and how it works.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana.
Thank you so much for today. It was my pleasure to speak to you all, and there will be the recording. So see you all sometime next month.
More
Thanks,
tasty
Oksana.
bites.
Amazing. Thank you.